Hey traders, it's John Fortune here with this week's Weekly Forex Forecast for the 9th of July to the 13th of July 2018. As always, starting with the US dollar index and oil, we are going to run through a number of markets, looking at the key levels of support and resistance in the process. And we're going to be highlighting some of the targets that we're going to be looking for in the coming week and also in the weeks ahead. So let's jump over to the charts and see where the money is this week. Starting with the US dollar index. Now, last week we were looking for a decline down into the 94.22 area, and you can see we did actually get this pullback to the 94.22, and this was an area we could once again start to look for potential bullish formations and patterns. But you can see, having declined into this level, we actually tested once and then we broke through it. So very simply put, going into this week, as we start the week below the 94.22, we'd preference a pullback and a retest of broken support, turning resistance at 94.22. And if we get this kind of price action, we're going to be looking at further declines in the US dollar index next week. First of all, down towards the target at the 93.72. And if we can get a breakthrough here, down towards target 2 at the 93.23. Now, it's worth just noting, however, that the dollar index is still in a bit of a range here, a bigger range. And so even though we're looking for further declines in the dollar index next week, we expect this to be kind of weak to neutral. Okay, so it means we're going to be playing the pairs on their own merit, because even if we get a slightly weak dollar, if we have a weaker currency paired against a weak dollar, then we will still see that currency declining against the US dollar. Next, we have crude oil. Now, last week we started the week up above the 72.87, and we were looking for a pullback and a possible retest of broken resistance turning support at the 72.87. And you can see we did actually get this. Now, you can also see that last week we didn't really have much movement in oil, and this was pretty much reflected across a lot of markets last week, as we had a couple of national holidays, such as Independence Day in the US. And we had a pretty corrective or low volatility week last week. However, we did still come back and test broken resistance turning support at the 72.87. So very simply put, this is now a great place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And if we start to get those bullish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the target 1 set from last week at the 75.91. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside in target 2 at the 79.46. So the first pair we're going to look at is euro dollar. Now, last week we were looking for a pullback towards roughly the 1.7300 area, and you can see we did actually get this pullback as the dollar index sold off to the downside, coming towards that support level in the dollar index. We did get that pullback in the euro dollar, but as we approach this, you can see we ended up breaking through this area last week, and we currently sit up around the 1.1750 area. So very simply put, as we start the week above this area, we're looking for potentially a pullback and a retest of broken resistance turning support. And if we get this kind of price action in this area, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance and the target set at the 1.18350. So the next pair we're going to look at is pound dollar. Now, last week we were looking for a pullback in the pound dollar as we were looking for the dollar index to decline. And we were looking to get another run down towards the 1.3041, where you can see we came very, very close to over here. So very simply put, we did get that pullback in the pound dollar, and we're now approaching key resistance to 1.3295. So if we start to see bearish formations and patterns in this area, this is going to be a great place on confirmation to start to look for short positions. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the target set and the next key area of support to the downside at the 1.3041. If we do get some real declines in the dollar index next week and this thing breaks straight through, don't forget, once we're above the 1.3295, as long as we can start to see the structure and we get patterns on this side, we can look once again for long positions in the other direction. So just bear that in mind if we do get a break straight through next week. Next, we have US dollar Japanese yen. Now, last week we were sitting above broken resistance looking to turn support. And you can see we didn't really move that much in the US dollar Japanese yen last week. We did have a low volatility week, and this was one of the markets that didn't really move very much. But still, we did correct down into the area of broken resistance turning support, and we currently sit right at the key area of support at the 110.250. So very simply put, going into this week, this is a great place to once again start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And if we get the right kind of bullish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside, and the first target at the 111.427. And if we can get a break through here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside and target 2 at the 112.152. Next, we have Aussie dollar. Now, last week we were sitting in this area and we were looking for a decline down towards the target at the 0.73111. And you can see we did actually get this decline. We had a really nice move in the Aussie dollar and we took the target out almost to the pip. And we bounced from this area and we start this week above broken resistance, looking to turn support at the 0.74089. So very simply put, if we start to get a pullback in this area and a retest of broken resistance turning support at the 0.74089, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And if we get the right kind of bullish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area resistance to the upside of the target set, 0.74688. And if we can get a break through here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area resistance to the upside and target 2 at the 0.75273. Next, we have New Zealand dollar. Now, last week we were looking further declines in New Zealand dollar, and you can see we did actually come down and take out the target set from last week at the 0.6110. This is the same target we had from last week, and we bounced from this area, and we've ended up pulling all the way back towards broken support, looking to turn resistance now at the 0.68500 area. So very simply put, if we start to see in this area, if we can pull back a little bit higher and get a retest of this area, and we start to get bearish formations and patterns in this area, this is going to be once again a great place to start to look for short positions in the New Zealand dollar. And we're going to be looking first of all back down towards the target that was taken out last week at the 0.67110. And if we can get a break through here, we're going to be looking down towards target 2 at the 0.65900. Next, we have US dollar franc. Now, you're seeing here a few things that we don't normally have in the forecast, and one of those is trend lines, and the other is we have targets to both the upside and the downside. Now, as professional traders, we always want to have an objective place on the charts where we are prepared to change our bias to close and reverse any positions that we potentially have. However, we always like to have at least a primary bias to point us in the right direction initially. Now, in terms of the US dollar franc, you can see we're sitting right at the 0.98967. And we've been in this consolidation period now pretty much for a month, all the way back over here when it started. So in the US dollar franc, although technically speaking, we start the week below the 0.98967, with the combination of a month of correction and this being just pretty much on the area, it's right on the area here. The best thing, personally, in my opinion, to look for in the US dollar franc would be to put it inside this corrective structure here. And I don't usually use trend lines very often, but in this case, it's better to identify the correction. And if we can get a break above the downward sloping trend line here, this is where we can start towards the upside to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And if we get that, we're going to be looking up towards the 1.00380. And conversely, if we break down below the upward sloping trend line here, this is where we can start to look for bearish formations and patterns down towards the target and the next key area of support to the downside at the 0.97909. Now, it's the first time ever in the forecast that we've had one where we could look to play this either way like this, but I think it is necessary based on the time that this correction has taken place. It's safer in this case to wait for the breakout. Next, we have US dollar CAD. Now, last week we started the week below broken support, looking to turn resistance to the 1.32101, and we were looking for a pullback towards this area for bearish formations and patterns. You can see this was a really nice move last week. Out of all the markets that were a bit sideways, this was actually one we traded in the room, and this was a nice move to the downside. And we are now approaching the target set from last week at the 1.30544. So very simply put, we're looking for this to come down and take out the target set from last week. It's very, very close. If we get a break through here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support and target 2 to the downside at the 1.29220. If we get a pullback this week and we start to retest the underside of broken support looking to turn resistance again at the 1.31247, this is also an area where, for anybody not involved, we can start to look once again for bearish formations and patterns down towards these targets, or for potentially a secondary position from anybody who had the first one last week. And finally, we have gold. Now, last week we were looking for further declines in gold, and you can see we did actually come down and we bounced right at the target area at the 1237.49. And where did we come when we bounced from here? We shot all the way back up to the previous broken support looking to turn resistance that we had from last week at the 1260.91. So very simply put, as we start the week, we've already bounced from this area. As we start the week below broken support, turning resistance at the 1260.91. This is a great place we can start once again to look for bearish formations and patterns, especially if we get another retest up at this area. And if we get those kind of bearish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking at, once again, looking to initiate shorts in gold down towards the target set and the next key area of support to the downside at the 1237.49. So that is it from me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know by liking, sharing and subscribing. A big thank you to all of you who do that on a regular basis, and for those of you who have subscribed to the channel so far. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. I hope you all have a very profitable week next week. The only thing left to say is to take care and don't forget to trade safely, guys.